Ahoy, ahoy, internets! Welcome, and thank you for joining us once again to the Mercurial Therapy Sessions. If you don't know, this is both a podcast, I would say mostly podcast, that I'm also doing, basic videos for those of you who prefer to look at this gorgeous face. As a matter of fact, I got a little prepped for this. I don't know if you notice my luscious locks, and those of you on the podcast, I apologize that you don't get to bask in this glory, but I'll tell you how you can. Join my YouTube channel. And for those of you on YouTube, thank you so much, but maybe think about the podcast. The only reason I say that, the YouTube is more for advertising, so there's no money making. I've actually had copyright claims on my own voice. I've mentioned this before. Again, I'm doing both video and podcast, and I'm using a new program from Dolby. And this is the Dolby that, Dolby Sound's been around forever, and it's so far fantastic. So I think I'm going to stick with this one until I officially upgrade. I have been playing around with a drum machine. I actually just recently got the new, well, it's not new, iPhone XS, but it's I don't know what they call it, jailbroke. I don't know if they use that term anymore, but here we go. Yeah, it locks out. It's a little warm in here, so I feel like I'm just gonna be sweating under that thing the whole time. But again, sorry for you podcast listeners, but you're just gonna have to check out the video. Anyway, don't even know what I was talking about. I'm getting sidetracked too easy here. So, I have been on a little bit of an extended break. I apologize for this. For those of you who do know, if you're not new to the show, and if you are, welcome. Thank you for being here. Again, this is the Mercurial Therapy Sessions. Please don't sue me. This is not real therapy. I am not a licensed therapist nor doctor, and none of my advice I give you should be considered medical advice in any way, shape, or form. But right here, I will post my contact info if you, like me, have issues dealing with the whole AA, NA programs, or during the pandemic have lost a sponsor, or, haven't been able to find a decent one, minus this little guy right here, and, I don't know, a cigarette or two once a month, or I guess twice a month, but you know what I'm saying, a social cigarette with the wife. Basically been alcohol free for 6 years at least, maybe 7. Opiate free for 7 years this November. And then, any other drug, you might say, including prescriptions. I was prescribed benzos. Just a quick breakdown for anyone new to this. I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, ADHD, obsessive compulsive disorder ruminating, which is a little different. And what was the last one? Acute anxiety disorder. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but they kind of go hand in hand. And the one good thing about being a borderline is if you accept that is something you have to deal with, and you don't keep yourself in denial, you can maybe not fully fix, quote unquote, yourself, because what does that even mean? But you can learn to not allow your emotions to override your rational thought, and especially if you have OCD on top of borderline, there's a good chance it's ruminating OCD, and that I think is almost harder to deal with than the borderline. The borderline, once you realize what it is, they can set you on a path that technically you don't really need medication for. I mean, here I am self-medicating. I use marijuana. A lot of times I use CBD. So if you're opposed to that, I don't see why anyone in the AA or NA community would be against CBD. They smoke cigarettes and they drink coffee. So I don't know. There's no psychoactive substances in CBD. Yes, you will notice a relaxing difference. And if you've never taken CBD before, I would start low, work your way up, because when they first started introducing it to like the Portland area, like one of my favorite coffee shops downtown that I don't even know if it's open anymore, it was called Floyd's before the pandemic. You could get 20 milligrams per shot of CBD, and it was a bit spendy, but it was East Fork Cultivators, which is a fantastic company. You can purchase their flower, their CBD flower online. They break down everything, and I'm going to kind of steer this episode or episodes into more marijuana-related topics. So if that's not something you're interested in, maybe just don't check out those ones. Specifically, this episode has to do with the finale of Loki, so don't worry. I'm just kind of rambling on about what's been going on in my life and why I've been a bit vacant, I guess, self-isolating, as they say. But I kind of hit one of those lulls. I mean, to be completely blunt, I had a weird allergic reaction. I've always had a autoimmune skin disorder thing that it seems to be stress related, I think, and probably diet. Although I have been eating better. I don't know if I look any better on film at all. I don't know if I'm actually losing any weight, but that's not the goal. I don't ever actually check a scale. So let's kick this off with a little bit of celebration, because your man, the Mercurial Psychonaut, made a guess in his very first review on Loki. That guess was that at some point this was going to involve King the Conqueror. And then I did another review. I started to reinforce this belief. Sorry. And I kept it to myself because I didn't want to spoil anything, but I purposely stayed off of any social media or Twitter or anything. If I saw something on YouTube that even said Loki, boom, off the website. I'll find something else to look at. Things get spoiled too easily, and I've had a streak, knock on wood, that I've been fortunate to not have things spoiled for me. So I didn't know King the Conqueror. Again, major spoilers, and I'll put that at the beginning of this. I apologize, but major spoilers ahead. So if you haven't seen it, do not watch this. Go watch Loki. And this will be spoilers for the episode 5 and 6, which unfortunately only 6 episodes. And I'm telling you, that final episode felt like 10 minutes. Oh, it was so good. Anyway, I didn't personally know this, but a lot of the finale was actually based off of an amalgamation of, well, I'm just going to not say it. So here, let me light this up real quick. Sorry, podcasters. Again, I am going to be discussing weed a little more. I've got a potential business partner, and she's a realtor, a broker, that is a fan of what I do, and, you know, we've been friends for a couple of years. I mean, I'm not throwing shade at anybody. She's 50, so she knows what she's doing. She's been in, you know, she owns her own business, and she had heard that I wanted to get involved with potentially, you know, at least selling weed, maybe one day running a shop. It seems to be something I'm very interested in, and more about the educational parts of it, the medicinal parts, and then helping with the misinformation getting fixed, because there's so much out there. Nice top shelf blunt to celebrate that I theorized in my very first review that Kang the Conqueror would play a pivotal role, or at the very least, this would lead to him appearing by the final episode. And I made that very specific. I said the final episode. What do we get? Episode's called The Man at the End of Time, or The Man at the End of the World, something like that. Essentially, another name for Kang the Conqueror. A lot of you probably have no idea who I'm talking about. If you watched Loki, that man you witnessed that was in the limbo world, which is actually, literally, the end of time. His castle that he's located in, Kang the Conqueror, who is a different variant. So he's not Kang the Conqueror. He is Kang, creator of the TVA, Kang, the man who helps keep this multiverse line in check. And the reason for that, Kang, who goes by many names, is a direct descendant of Reed Richards, who's from the Fantastic Four. He's Mr. Fantastic, the stretchy guy, who has genius intellect. Well, he has a son named Nathaniel Richards. His son is essentially God. He's like omniscient, invincible, essentially. He seemingly can't die. And they do some trippy time travel stuff. I talked about this when I theorized about Kang the Conqueror, but they do some very interesting things with the timeline because of all these variants and Kang messing with the past and the future. I mean, he's literally watched the beginning of time and the end of time. And that's why this version that we watch in Loki, episode 6, is a variant that is literally trying to stop the other variants of himself from destroying the universe as we know it, the whole entire multiverse. Because what he finds out is he is actually the cause of the end of time. So when we see him in this castle, that is the last of the universe. That little chunk of rock, that little sort of planet they're on, that's it. That's all there is to it. And if you watch the episode, there's this limbo ghost monster thing that when it devours something, it eviscerates its timeline. It's cool. And I'll throw a picture in here, but they ended episode 5 with such an awesome, it's sort of a cliffhanger, but more of like, oh fuck, that's amazing. They took all these different variants of Loki and they all had them in this like limbo world. And so you think Loki gets killed, and of course he doesn't. I mean, it's Tom Hiddleston. But when he shows up, they're all just waiting there for him, and there's a version of him that's Thor. They have the original Loki from the comic books, like the early 60s and 70s comics, like the old Loki in the goofy ass suit. I mean, it literally looks like a Halloween costume suit. It's incredible. Of course, we get Sylvie, who, by the end of this episode, I'm convinced she's going to be the character Enchantress, or she's already under the guidance of Enchantress. That I'm still debating, because her power set, the name Sylvie, all of that is related to Enchantress. And what she's able to do, she enchants people. So I delved deeper into this, because like, okay, that's Kang the Conqueror. He doesn't say he's Kang the Conqueror. He says, I'm the end of all, or something along those lines. I'll post it here, and I apologize for you in the podcast again. I'll try to sneak in a little clip to correct myself so that you can hear it. But he has so many different names, and given, like I said, that he started disrupting the timelines, there really are timekeepers that do find him and say, hey, look, you hang out at the end of time. If you're willing to keep the timeline in check, we'll forgive your discretions and we'll keep you safe. We'll keep the other variants of Kang from ever being able to find you. And essentially, when I did a little bit of research, it follows the Marvel Universe canon in the comic books. It's, like I said, it's an amalgamation of different ones, but there is a series where, again, it is Kang the Conqueror. It's also Nathaniel Richards. It's also, something else Richards from the 31st century. It's pretty trippy. So it's his son. It's his great descendant. It's wild. Again, his power set's incredibly advanced technology, which a lot of it he got from Victor Von Doom, and then took it into the future and improved on it. So he builds himself a suit that's better than Doom's. He's able to look into the future and every variant, essentially. So unless you're able to, somehow destroy his statistical probabilities of what you'll do, he can pretty much assume your next moves for a lifetime. He can travel through the multiverse. He can travel in and out of time to anywhere. I mean, I don't know what you call that. That's essentially God to me. I got a couple different theories about what's going on. So Kang the Conqueror, I believe, is the variant he talked about when he's talking to Loki and Sylvie when we finally find him. And they want to kill him because they think he's the cause of all this. And he explains to them, hey, what's good, what's evil when you have to do these evil things to keep worse things from causing more destruction. Is it evil? Is it good? They did a really good job, and it's the actor from Harrow County. Again, probably should have done some better research. You know what? Let me jump on the internet right now. It'll take me just 1 second here. I'll get a little more info going for y'all. Hey Siri, Kang the Conqueror. I've given him the iPhone.
Kang the Conqueror is a fictional character appearing in American comic books published by Marvel Comics.
You're so smart.
Do you want me to keep reading?
No. That's funny. Although for some reason it disappeared. Hey Siri, Kang the Conqueror Wikipedia page.
Kang the Conqueror is a fictional character appearing in American comic.
Bam. Alright. So, I posted some photos, but this is what's crazy. Since he's gone back and forth through time, he has been multiple different deities, characters, variants. At one point he goes back to the Egyptian times because the first mutant is Apocalypse, who is a celestial being because they created the mutants. But he essentially turns himself into a god. But technically speaking, Apocalypse is the very first mutant ever. He was known as Ramen Tut, Kang the Conqueror, Nathaniel Richards, Iron Lad, Victor Timely, Scarlet Centurion, Immortus, Mr. Griffin. His abilities: genius level intellect, time travel, hand-to-hand combat, 100% resistance to radiation, access to advanced technologies, highly advanced battle armor that grants enhanced strength, energy, hologram, and force field projection. Ooh, he can shoot a hologram at you. A 30-day supply of air and food. That is very specific. Wow, okay. Ability to control other forms of technology. And then He has a will-sapping ray gun. I can tell you they do upgrade those things quite a bit. He basically becomes a god himself. Let's see. Sorry, I'm scrolling through this real quick. I just wanted to find some other amalgamations of Kang the Conqueror. Just because I think it's really interesting what they're going to do, and I'm very much excited about it. Again, it's just kind of cool. I can use a little bit of my narcissistic self-praise right now and be like, holy shit, I was right, and without spoilers. Which I did say in that video. This is 100% guess, so if you don't want to hear my guess, don't listen, because it could be a spoiler. And it turns out, it was. So anyway, they find this version of Kang who... Christ, I need to figure out what he calls himself. I'm gonna get frustrated. Yeah, this sounds real good. Oh, He Who Remains is the episode. And that comes from his title, He Who Remains at the End of Time. Because Kang the Conqueror is the reason the universe ends. The whole entire multiverse. So, yeah. Nathaniel Richards, a 31st century scholar and descendant of Reed Richards. It's just crazy. I don't know. There's so much that gets mixed in. Like Reed Richards' father could be part of it. Dr. Doom might be related to Reed Richards because of how the timelines were fucked with. Anyway, really cool stuff. And when we got that episode, I told her, I go, holy shit. I was just reading this straight from the comic books. The time stream gods, the beings that keep the timeline in check, offer this version, like I mentioned, Kang, to just kind of create the time variance authority, create this timeline that's in control so that other variants will never find him. Unfortunately, Sylvie is still a little pissed at him, and despite all the growth between her and Loki, he finally admits he's in love with her, which is kind of funny because, of course, Loki falls in love with Loki. That's so weird. It's like, I guess it's not your sister, it's you, so does that make it better or worse? I don't really want to think about that. Let's just say not good. But, yeah, just when you think she's gonna do it right, unfortunately, she spares Loki, gets him zapped through a wormhole. They got these devices that allow them to travel the multiverse. He sends them back to the Time Variance Authority, kills this variant of Kang, and he lets them know that if he dies, all the control of the multiverse goes with him, which means there are infinite variants of him that if they believe him to be a demon or a devil, wait till they meet a true devil, which I thought was very cool. It's like, you think I'm bad from what I've done. What I took from you is nothing compared to what these guys are going to do. And, I guess she calls his bluff, but unfortunately, it wasn't a bluff. They had a great line where Loki says, problem is, I was once in your same position. You can't trust anyone, and no one can trust me. So therefore, I can't be trusted, and you can't trust anyone. It sucks, because he's on this redemption story, and it's like, he's trying so hard to do things right, and just people keep shitting on him because he's Loki. And I mean, it's not that it's undeserved. Again, You want to have sympathy for the dude, but realize he still killed a lot of people in New York. He did try to become the king of Midgard. He got his mom killed. Tried to kill Thor. Not much redemption there, but he does come back, so.